Few Hollywood stars have left behind a legacy as large as John Wayne's. But when the screen legend died in 1979, the biggest surprise was not the sadness felt across America. It was what investigators, family members, and legal experts found inside his estate. Behind the famous cowboy image was a collection of priceless treasures, deeply personal belongings, and a carefully planned will that revealed a side of John Wayne most fans had never seen. Yet one question still remains: what did these discoveries really say about the man behind the legend? For millions of fans, John Wayne was more than an actor. He was the face of courage, strength, and the American West. Whether he was riding across the desert or standing his ground in a tense showdown, audiences believed they knew exactly who he was. But real life is rarely that simple. When Wayne passed away at the age of 72 after a battle with cancer, his family faced not only the loss of a husband and father, but also the enormous task of handling one of Hollywood's most valuable estates. His career had stretched across decades, producing more than 170 film appearances and making him one of the highest-paid and most recognizable actors of his time. As lawyers began sorting through his belongings, they uncovered far more than expensive property. There were handwritten letters, personal photographs, scripts marked with his own notes, awards, business records, and treasured keepsakes collected over a lifetime. Some items reflected the larger-than-life movie star the world admired. Others revealed a private man who valued family, friendships, and memories that money could never replace. Of course, rumors quickly spread. Stories appeared claiming there were secret fortunes, hidden rooms, and shocking discoveries that had been kept from the public. Some of those tales grew bigger with every retelling. But many could never be verified, making it difficult to separate fact from fiction. Before we uncover what was truly found, and what the official records actually reveal, we'd love to hear from you. If you inherited the estate of one of Hollywood's biggest legends, what would you hope to discover first? Let us know in the comments. What happened next wasn't just about money. To understand why John Wayne's estate fascinated the world, we first have to understand how an ordinary young man became one of the greatest legends Hollywood has ever known. Long before John Wayne became the face of the American cowboy, he was simply Marion Robert Morrison, a young man from Iowa who grew up in Southern California with big dreams and no clear path to Hollywood. Few could have guessed that this quiet teenager would one day become one of the biggest movie stars in history. His journey began with hard work, not fame. Wayne attended the University of Southern California on a football scholarship. But life took an unexpected turn when an injury ended his athletic future. Suddenly, the career he had counted on disappeared. Looking for work, he found small jobs around local movie studios, moving props and helping behind the scenes. It wasn't glamorous, but it placed him close to an industry that was changing the world. That chance encounter changed everything. Director John Ford noticed the tall, confident young man and believed he had something special. Their partnership would last for decades, though it wasn't always easy. Ford pushed Wayne relentlessly, demanding discipline and emotional depth. The tough lessons often frustrated Wayne, but they helped shape him into the actor audiences would later admire. His breakthrough finally came in 1939 with Stagecoach. The film transformed him almost overnight from a struggling actor into a genuine Hollywood star. From there, his career exploded. Over the next 4 decades, he appeared in classics such as The Searchers, True Grit, which earned him the Academy Award for Best Actor, and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Each role strengthened the image of a fearless, dependable hero. But the man off-screen was far more complicated. Wayne built businesses beyond acting, invested in real estate, and carefully managed his finances. Friends often described him as someone who paid close attention to contracts and long-term planning. He understood that Hollywood success could disappear quickly, so he worked to create financial security for his family. His personal life, however, was far from perfect. He married 3 times and became the father of 7 children. Balancing a demanding film career with family life proved difficult, and those closest to him sometimes felt the cost of his constant work. Even so, many family members later remembered his generosity, his sense of humor, and his determination to provide for future generations. Then came another challenge no movie script could prepare him for. In the 1960s, Wayne was diagnosed with lung cancer. Although he underwent surgery and returned to acting, health concerns followed him for years. He continued making films despite repeated setbacks, determined not to let illness define him. His final movie, The Shootist, released in 1976, carried an emotional weight that many viewers recognized only later. In it, Wayne portrayed an aging gunfighter facing terminal cancer, a role that echoed his own life in deeply personal ways. When John Wayne died on June 11, 1979, tributes poured in from around the world. Fans mourned the loss of an icon, while Hollywood honored a man whose career had shaped generations of filmmaking. Yet behind the scenes, another story was only beginning. As attorneys prepared to open his will and inventory everything he had left behind, they realized this would not be an ordinary estate. Hidden among valuable properties, business interests, and treasured personal belongings were discoveries that would fuel public curiosity for decades. If you're enjoying stories like this, subscribe now because the biggest twist is still ahead. The documents were ready. The family gathered. And what they found inside John Wayne's estate would become one of the most talked-about celebrity legacies in Hollywood history. When the legal process began after John Wayne's death, many people expected to hear about a vast Hollywood fortune. They were right, but not in the way the rumors suggested. The official records painted the picture of a man who had spent decades building not only a legendary career but also a carefully managed estate. Reports at the time estimated the value of John Wayne's estate at tens of millions of dollars, an amount that would be worth far more today after inflation. It included valuable real estate, business investments, royalties from his films, and personal collections gathered over nearly half a century in the spotlight. But that wasn't what fascinated people most. As family members and estate representatives sorted through Wayne's belongings, they discovered room after room filled with pieces of Hollywood history. There were costumes from famous films, scripts covered with handwritten notes, awards, photographs taken behind the scenes, and gifts from fellow actors, directors, and even world leaders. Each item seemed to tell its own story. Some scripts revealed how carefully Wayne studied his characters. Instead of simply memorizing lines, he often made notes in the margins, changing the rhythm of a sentence or underlining words he wanted to emphasize. These small details reminded those closest to him that his effortless performances were backed by careful preparation. Then came the personal letters. Unlike movie posters or trophies, these handwritten notes offered a glimpse into Wayne's private world. Some were exchanged with friends in Hollywood. Others came from family members. Many reflected moments of joy, loss, gratitude, and concern that the public had never seen. While most remained private out of respect for his family, those who reviewed them described a man who cared deeply about the people closest to him. That quieter side surprised many fans. For years, John Wayne had been known almost entirely through the tough characters he played on screen. Yet inside his home were reminders of birthdays, family vacations, children's drawings, and keepsakes that held little financial value but enormous emotional meaning. Of course, it didn't take long for rumors to spread. Some tabloids claimed secret vaults had been uncovered. Others suggested there were hidden fortunes, undisclosed collections of gold, or mysterious documents that would change Hollywood history forever. One rumor even claimed investigators found long-lost treasures worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The problem? None of those sensational stories have ever been supported by credible evidence. Over the years, historians, biographers, and journalists have repeatedly found that many of the wild claims surrounding Wayne's estate were built on speculation rather than documented fact. The genuine discoveries were impressive enough without adding myths. His real estate holdings, successful business ventures, valuable film memorabilia, and ongoing royalty income already made his estate one of the most significant celebrity estates of its era. But there was one discovery that continued to spark conversation. It wasn't hidden in a secret room. It wasn't buried beneath one of his ranches. It was a document that revealed exactly how John Wayne wanted his life's work, and much of his fortune, to be passed on after his death. Some family members were surprised by its details. Others believed it reflected exactly the kind of man he had always been. Have you ever wondered what kind of legacy you'll leave behind, not just in money, but in memories and values? Share your thoughts in the comments. Because when John Wayne's will was finally opened, people realized his greatest message to his family wasn't measured in dollars. It was written between the lines of one carefully prepared plan. When John Wayne's will was finally read, many expected drama. Hollywood had seen its share of bitter inheritance battles. Families had gone to court. Friends had challenged wills. Long legal fights had turned private grief into public spectacle. With a fortune built over decades and a family that included 7 children from 3 marriages, Some believed the same thing would happen here. But the truth was more thoughtful than sensational. John Wayne had spent years preparing for this moment. According to reports from the probate process and accounts from biographers, he worked with legal advisors to create an estate plan designed to protect both his family and the legacy he had built. Rather than leaving confusion behind, he wanted clear instructions. His estate included valuable California and Arizona properties, business interests, investments, and continuing income from film royalties and licensing. Because many of his movies remained popular long after their release, money continued to flow into the estate even after his passing. That meant his legacy was still growing. But Wayne understood that wealth could also create conflict. His will reflected careful planning instead of impulse, with assets distributed through a structured estate rather than a simple division of cash. One of the most talked-about parts of the estate involved his children. Wayne was the father of 7: Michael, Patrick, Tony, Melinda, Isa, Ethan, and Marissa. Although they had grown up in different chapters of his life, he tried to provide for them through his estate planning. Public records and family accounts indicate that provisions were made for multiple heirs, while certain responsibilities connected to protecting his image and business interests eventually fell to family members who played active roles in managing the estate. That decision sparked discussion. Some outsiders wondered why specific responsibilities appeared to rest with certain members of the family. But legal experts pointed out that managing an estate is not the same as inheriting it. Running licensing agreements, preserving archives, and protecting a famous name require time, experience, and constant attention. In other words, it was a job. And it became a very important one. Over the years, Wayne's children, especially those involved in preserving his public legacy, helped oversee projects that introduced new generations to his work. Official merchandise, restored films, museum exhibits, and licensing agreements helped ensure that the John Wayne name remained one of Hollywood's most recognizable brands. But that wasn't the only surprise. Tucked within the stories surrounding the estate was a personal request that has been repeated for decades. According to several biographies and family accounts, John Wayne wished for the words "feo, fuerte y formal" to appear on his gravestone. The Spanish phrase translates to ugly, strong, and dignified. Friends said it reflected the sense of humor and quiet confidence that people close to him knew so well. Interestingly, those words did not appear publicly for many years because Wayne's burial site remained intentionally private at his family's request. That decision only fueled more speculation, with some fans imagining hidden messages or secret instructions that simply did not exist. Sometimes, mystery grows from silence. The more private the family remained, the more rumors filled the gap. Yet the verified story tells us something different. John Wayne's estate was not defined by shocking secrets or hidden treasure. It was defined by planning, responsibility, and a desire to care for the people he loved while preserving the career he had spent a lifetime building. Still, one question remained. Why does John Wayne's name continue to inspire such fascination nearly half a century after his death? Plenty of actors leave behind money. Very few leave behind a cultural legacy that continues to shape movies, museums, and conversations decades later. The answer has less to do with what was inside his estate than with what he left inside the hearts of millions of fans. By the time the final details of John Wayne's estate had been settled, something remarkable had become clear. The headlines had focused on the money. The rumors had focused on hidden treasures. But neither told the full story. The real discovery inside John Wayne's estate was the life it reflected. Every handwritten letter, every marked-up script, every family photograph, and every carefully preserved keepsake pointed to a man who understood that fame does not last forever. What lasts are the memories people leave behind and the values they pass on to the next generation. That realization has shaped the way his family has cared for his legacy ever since. Over the years, John Wayne's children and representatives have worked to preserve his films, protect his name, and introduce new audiences to his work. His movies continue to be restored and released for new generations. His image still appears in documentaries, books, and exhibitions celebrating Hollywood's golden age. Even decades after his passing, his performances in films like Stagecoach, The Searchers, and True Grit continue to influence actors and filmmakers around the world. His influence also extends beyond the movie screen. The John Wayne name has remained connected to charitable efforts through organizations established in his memory, including initiatives that support cancer research and patient care. For many fans, That work represents a fitting tribute to a man who spent years battling the disease that ultimately claimed his life. Of course, not every part of his legacy is without debate. Modern audiences sometimes revisit Wayne's public statements and views, particularly comments from past interviews that have drawn criticism in recent years. Historians and film scholars often point out that it is possible to appreciate his impact on cinema while also examining his words and actions through the lens of history. His legacy, like that of many cultural icons, is complex and continues to spark discussion. Perhaps that's why people remain so fascinated by him. John Wayne wasn't simply a movie star. He became a symbol. To some, he represented courage and determination. To others, he reflected a changing era in American culture. Whether admired or criticized, his place in film history is undeniable. And maybe that's the biggest surprise of all. When people searched John Wayne's estate hoping to uncover one shocking secret, they found something far more meaningful. There was no verified hidden vault filled with unimaginable riches. No confirmed mystery that changed Hollywood history overnight. Instead, they found evidence of a lifetime built with purpose. A man who carefully planned for his family's future. A professional who treated his career like a craft. A father who left behind more than financial assets. And an icon whose influence continues long after the cameras stopped rolling. Before we end, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think is a person's greatest legacy? Wealth, achievements, or the impact they have on others? Share your answer in the comments below. As one generation discovers John Wayne through classic westerns and another learns about the man behind the legend, his story continues to evolve. Every old photograph, every restored film, and every preserved letter reminds us that history is rarely as simple as the headlines make it seem. And if you thought this story was surprising, wait until you see the next documentary, where we'll uncover another celebrity legacy filled with unexpected truths, forgotten history, and the real stories hidden behind the fame.